So we're a little over an hour away now, and I've come down to the start, and I'm sat by the clock tower. Behind me over here, down there, is the race start. That's where we're going off. We've got to go through kit check yet. People are starting to arrive, although I thought there would be more people here by now. But we're soon going to be off. Eager, I want to go. I want to go now. I might go ahead of everyone else. Oh, let me go, I want to go. So at the start, we made it into the starter's pen. The kit check was basically a random item. Anyway, around me, basically me and a sea of pretty much French and Spanish runners. All of them look like they were born and bred in the mountains. They look like they belong here, and I'm feeling a little bit out of my depth.
Let's hear the silence. Concentration. Minds focused on the race, because now it's time for the music of the Celestrail.
Past all the crowds, and the only bit of fucking downhill we're gonna get. Celestrail 2019, I am in you, and frankly you've been terrifying me for about 48 hours. Feels damn good to be going. Let's go do some shit. So I'm at the first aid station, 15 k's in. Not gonna lie, that was fucking horrible. I mean, like fucking horrible. I'm not enjoying this at all. I am hanging out my arse, and so early to be struggling is a real worry. I'm just troughed down a load of food, but I'm clipping my back foot all the time. I'm wobbling from side to side. I'm not strong on my feet. Things have already started to hurt. I don't know what's going on. I'm feeling a little bit lightheaded, and I'm just not on it at all at the moment. My head is fucking somewhere else, so just trying to gather myself here for a few minutes before I crack again. We've got another big climb coming up. We've done one of the biggest climbs, about 1,000 meters, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, 15 k's in. So, aid station 2, I think somewhere like 22 kilometers or something in, and I feel a whole lot better than I did the last check-in. I've got some soup going on here. I just met another English runner on the course, had a bit of a chat, which raised my spirits quite a lot, and yeah, I feel in better spirits now. I'm feeling a little bit more like I want to actually be out here, which is great. It's always a bonus. Let's have a look at the aid station. This is it. Got all sorts going on here. Got people chilling out, taking some rest, getting some soup in, and all sorts of pasta and goodies. But yeah, we've I think we've got some more climbing to do. Obviously got more climbing to do today, but we've got a little bit more climbing than a downhill stretch, and I think we've got some runnable stuff, I'm hoping, in the next 10 miles or so, but we shall see. I'm getting pretty close to the cut-off, to be honest, so you know, need to get moving, but better than I was. So I think we've just topped out, we've done the first kind of topping out, about 2,100 metres, and the sun is just coming up. It's about 6:30, and the thing is, I'm pushing the cut off, I think, really, but fuck it. I don't come here for cut-offs and shit, I come here to see things like this. Look behind me. That is beautiful. So far, a lot of the pain paid off. Just to see that. Crack on the hay. So, just casually walking up a ski lift. It's all right. Nothing to see here. Just a big steep ski lift. That's all. Just what we all wanted. So we made it to aid station 3. We've been going for about 7 hours 51. That's nearly 30 k's, which is the longest 30 k's I've ever run. Half marathon was 6 hours or something, which is insane. But we've made it. We've now got 3 hours to get to the cut-off of 11 hours at the next checkpoint. We've got to do 15 k's in 3 hours, so it is going to be tight. I'm going to give myself another 9 minutes here before I go. Got some watermelon. I'm feeling pretty good when I get on the runnable bits, but it's hard. We just come up a ski lift. It's like that. It blows you on the downs, quad's gone, but I'm here surrounded by a bunch of guys who are doing double the distance I'm doing or more in terms of the elevation. They're all killing it, so just going to get back out there and see what I can do. If I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. I have to say I'm really happy. You know, earlier I was 15 k's. I wanted to go home at that first aid station. I was done. If there was a bus, I would have got on it. It just felt terrible, and so I'm really happy that I sort of dealt with some really big demons out there, and I've come back and made it this far. So let's go and see what we can get. I'll catch you on the other side. Hey people, so we are, I think, around 36 k's done. That first 5k of the 15k block was pretty much runnable with some sort of quite quad busting downhill descents, but we're inside the hour for that first 5. Actually, we've done an extra one, so it's the same all the way to the station where we could be on here. Although the danger is that I'm going to leave nothing in the tank for the other 40 k's that still remain. But we'll see. Let's get this next 5k done first. So, made it into, I don't even know what checkpoint this is, 3 I think. Hold on, 1, 2, 3, I think it's 3, with about 45 minutes to spare, and I'm busted up, proper busted up, just down a load of stuff. I've taken a little while to try and get myself right, but I feel sick now all of a sudden. Sun's come out now, so it's getting hot here. We've got a bit of a climb and then a steady run into the next checkpoint. So I'm going to do what all smart ultra runners do, and I'm going to get out of here in a minute. And I'm going to just make my way to the next checkpoint and see how I feel then. But so far, so far so good. From the shitstorm that was the first 15k's through to here now, that's the result on its own. So let's see what happens. So we've made it to number 4 is behind me. We are at now 56 kilometers of the 83, so 27 to go. I think we've got about 1,200 meters of climb to go, and I'm back to feeling like absolute shocking load of old shite. So I've got the Haribo out and I put them in the little pouch for trail treats. I'm hoping that's going to work. I quite want to get on the bus and go home, but if there's a bus at the next aid station, I'm going to the next aid station, because that's what good ultra runners do. Just keep going, they don't quit because something hurts. Like everything hurts. Everything fucking hurts, by the way. Anyway, I'll see you later. So, hey people, it's the morning after the day before in the run, and it's me at another airport doing another video about a race instead of doing it somewhere nice. So anyway, let's talk Celestrail and what happened. I have chalked up another DNF, which is somewhat frustrating, but actually I'm really cool about it. I haven't run for 3 months before going to do this race, and my knee troubles were a worry when going into it. Long story short, I got to 68 kilometers and decided that as I could start to feel them, that I'd achieved everything I wanted to out of this race. You know, I'd had a good run and I thought it best to step off, so I did. That's not really why we're here, so I'm not going to say anything else about that. Now, I did the Celestrail, which is the 83 kilometers with 5,000 meter version of this race. There are, I think, 6 or 7 races in total, going from a friendly kind of family sort of 2k through a marathon up to something called Euphoria, which is like a 280 kilometer crazy Tour de Géant style run that you run for 5 days or something silly. Celestrail is like the 4th down that roster. There's another one up from me, which is called the Mitic, which is 170 k's. No, it's 115 k's, I think. But I saw the presentation for the briefing, and it looked crazy in terms of the altitude and the elevation gain that you get in that race. So let's talk about the Celestrail. 83 kilometers, 5,000 meters of elevation gain. Starts at midnight, and you have 24 hours to run the distance. Now, I've not done loads and loads of mountain races. I've done the Marathon du Mont Blanc, I have done the Lavaredo twice, although not finished it twice. I've done a few other odds and sods, but I'm not really a hugely experienced mountain runner, so everything I say, bear that in mind. There's a caveat to this, that there are better runners out there, people who are more used to running in this environment and terrain who might come at this race slightly differently. That said, I've never experienced a race like this, with the first 15 kilometers put me on my arse. I suffered. You start at midnight, you run through the town, and then very quickly you start to climb. And this race has something like, I think it was like 13 or 1400 meters of elevation gain in the first 10 kilometers. And bearing in mind, I think it was like a 3 kilometer run sort of out of town before you started to climb. What you've got here is something that is like that. And again, to put this into context, for the Lavaredo, which is another race that I've struggled with, to be honest, that has a similar amount of elevation across the first 33 kilometers. So you're talking steep here for these Andorra races. They are not messing around with these kind of Pyrenees mountain trails, and I think that's the theme throughout this whole run. They are more difficult, I think, than other races that I've encountered. I spoke to a lot of people along the way on the route who've got vast amounts of experience, have done lots of different things, Tour de Géant, people who've had the UTMB, people who've done the Lavaredo, and you know, more often than not, the first thing that came back was like, these are not races that are easy. They, compared to those other races, they are tricky. I'm not saying it's UTMB, but you know, it's not a light trail race. This is kind of steep incline. So yeah, I got to the first aid station, 15 k's. I think it took something like 3 or 4 hours to do that. It was dark. It started to rain. I was sat on a rock and outside this hut in the dark in the middle of nowhere. And if there had been a bus off the mountain, I would have left. Fortunately, there wasn't one. There's no other way off, so you've got to go to the next aid station. There wasn't one at the second aid station, so I had to go to the next aid station. But I have to say, I was clipping my back foot the whole time. I'd rolled my ankle a couple of times. I wasn't running well, and in the conditions that I encountered in that first sort of stretch, I was really questioning whether or not I'd bitten off more than I could chew. But I persevered, and then what you get from this race is actually, once you've done sort of one of the second big climb out of one of the aid stations, you rise onto a ridge, and I got there just as the sun was coming up, and from feeling like absolute junk to then having conquered a couple of the big climbs, getting into a section of the track which is a little bit more runnable for, I guess, a flat road runner like me, was a happy moment. And then I got moving, actually. I got motoring, and I was able to put in some kilometres, and my mood completely changed. And then there were sections where you could run, you know, you could let the legs go a bit through forests along kind of nice, fairly sort of groomed trails. Then there's a steep descent in this race which goes on for about, I think it's like a 9-mile descent. And that's where your second problem comes in, which is that your quads get hammered from the constant downhill. It's when your toes and your feet start to take a bit more of a battering. So although you're moving well, you're actually paying a price which, as I found out, will come back to bite you a little later on. I was racing the cut-offs because I think for the first half of this race you've got 11 hours to get to 45 kilometres. And if you're, again, you know, from the context of being a pretty average at best mountain runner, these are quite strict cut-off times. They're quite stringent. So I was racing to meet the halfway cut-off of 11 hours, and I got in, I think, with an hour to spare. But that was by some pretty hard running going into the middle section. Out of the middle section, you then start to encounter a whole new problem as well, which, again, this might change depending on what happens with the weather, but the midday sun starts to rise and it gets very hot out here. You know, you're basically then being cooked for the next 5 or 6 hours. I reached a point where I found it very difficult to satiate my thirst. I was taking electrolytes, I was drinking lots of water at the aid stations, clearly not enough because I was constantly thirsty and I wasn't carrying enough water between the stations. So that was a problem, and I clocked this quite early on, and then I started to fill up an extra bottle, and even then I was getting through that. So I think that's something, if you ever come to do this race, to bear in mind, that you need to, if that sun is up the way it was for me, and you're hitting 28 to 30 degrees, you're going to need to think about packing some extra water so that you've got enough to carry you between the stations. And what else can I say about this? I mean, I've never seen a race, actually not just me, put so many other people standing on the first climb. You know, there were lots of people who were halfway up the first climb, who were sitting on rocks, taking time out. Maybe that's because they knew the terrain and they were being smart. Maybe they didn't know the terrain, and this was a bit of an abrupt kind of wake-up call for getting into the race. But it's not just that first half either. There's the climbs in here are decent when you encounter them. You know, no joke. Even look at your road book. You know, on the race number they always print the little road book with the elevation going up and down. And even in the downs there were ups in this race. That does wonders for the mind. I can tell you when you're really struggling, you think, I've just got this section which is either flat or down, and there's loads of ups in the flats and there's lots of ups in the downs. It's a real test mentally. But here's the thing, actually. Here's one big climb we did was you come up into, I think it was like the third aid station, maybe around 30 kilometres, and you basically have to hack up under a ski lift, and that's it's really, really steep. But very quickly in this race you realise that you've just got to get your head down, look at your feet, don't look up, and just take it on, go slow, stop if you have to, and bit by bit you do make it to the top. It was, for me, a comparison that I drew on when I was running this was in the MDS, when you hit the big sort of mountain jebbles of sand. If you look at how tiny the people are at the top of them and you think, I'm never going to get up there, you won't. You have to just look at your feet and just think one step, one step, one step, and then eventually you're that tiny little figure at the top and someone else is looking at you wondering how they're going to get up there. The second section of this race, I think from around from around about 50 k's is runnable if you haven't smashed your quads the way that I had, or you hadn't put your body through the mill the way that I had. I came into this race a little bit underfit as well. I hadn't really run for 2 months because of an injury. But if you are in a good place at that point, I think you can cover a lot more distance than I did, and that will be very, very useful for putting you in a positive mindset for the end of the race, where you start to climb again, but you've got about another 1,000 metres, 1,200 metres to do in the last 15 k's. But if you can get there with lots of time to spare, feeling good, I think those last 15 k's you'll just drag them out. I was the opposite. Everything had locked up a bit. I could feel the knee injury that had put me out for a couple of months coming back, so I decided I slowed and I took it easy, and about 70 kilometres I decided that I would call it a day. So I can't speak for the final 15 k's of the course, I'm afraid, but it's looking at the way the roadbook represents climbs and the experience of the rest of the race. It's going to be, there was a section of it that was going to be tough for sure. It was going to ask a lot of you at that point, and then there was a fairly decent descent that was probably going to also be quite taxing on the quads, but you'd get that done. Once you hit the top of the last climb, you'd just get that done. Other things to say about this race: the aid stations are brilliantly well stocked. Everybody is really fantastically helpful. You get everything from there's bananas, watermelons, there's soup with pasta, there's nuts and raisins, Coke, apple juice, fizzy water. There's just everything that you could want. I probably made a mistake of carrying too much food, to be honest, and eating off the aid stations here you can certainly do if you like those kind of things and they work for you. You're going to want to carry some fuel in between, but I probably had too much. I had a bit of weight in my bag. There are points that you can refill your bottles from the mountain fountains, I guess, for want of a better word, so you can get drinking water on the move. I didn't see a lot of kind of massage or other bits and pieces like that. There's a huge amount of medics. The aid stations are fairly well placed, so it doesn't feel like there's too long between each of the stations. Psychologically, that's a big thing, and actually just for topping up the water, they felt sort of nicely spaced out, and that was really good. Everybody was super cheerful, and motivation was great from them. They were really encouraging, and they had the answers to all the questions that you wanted to know. The organisation actually out here I thought was fantastic. Ordino, where the race starts and finishes, is a beautiful little town that's well worth a visit as a destination to come and see and have a weekend here and do a run. And I'd never been to this part of the world before, and I would totally recommend that. It's a quaint little mountain town. Not a huge amount of restaurants and things to do, but there was good spirit in the town. There was good atmosphere. The whole place was kind of taken over by runners doing the various different races, and I think it's probably one of the less well-known races outside of Spain and France and outside of this area. There was only 10 runners from the UK in my race. Weirdly, I actually ended up bumping into about 6 of those on the course. And if I hadn't, I think it sort of made for a little bit of a lonely time because I was out here on my own. Probably better to bring a family or support crew if you're going to do that, because you literally won't really see anyone else. And people don't really speak very much English here, that's our bad. If you're English and you don't, or if you're British and you don't have any languages, then we can't complain about that. But it is something to bear in mind that there isn't a lot of spoken English, and that or on the course, that makes it quite difficult. It's quite hard to get a rapport with people who are running by. So that's something just to bear in mind. I think if I came back here, I'd bring some family to be there just at certain points to give you someone to talk to. When I found these English people on the course, it was a really nice boost actually, because I hadn't really spoken to anyone all weekend. So that was give you a little pep. And yeah, I think that's it. So if you're going to come here and you're looking at the race calendar, you're thinking, I can do the Myths. It's only 100. I forget, it's like 120 k's, because that's my normal distance. I do 120 k's. Look very, very carefully at that elevation map before you decide to do that one. I think if you think about these are a level up from your normal races at that distance in terms of how painful it's going to get, then just consider it. I found the 83k. I've struggled twice with the Lavaredo at 120 k's, and I'm telling you, the first 85 k's, 90 k's of the Lavaredo is so much easier than the first 85 k's or the entire race of this Celestrail that I did. So there's a marathon here with 3,000 meters, and that's also going to be tricky. I think first out, I probably would have liked to have gone for that one, and then get the finish. If the finish is important to you, then maybe go for that. If you're a proper hard ass mountain runner, Celestrail will definitely tick boxes for you. You'll enjoy it. So yeah, that's it from the Andorra Ultra Trail. That's a bit of a wrap about the Celestrail and what I found out here. And I totally recommend you come out here and have a look around. Even if you're not racing, Andorra is a great place to visit. And the trails in and around Ordino were absolutely spectacular, if a little bit painful. But that's it. Until the next time I'm in an airport. There's no bing bongs this time, so that's been useful. But until next time, I've been me, and that's been me waffling on. But catch you later, guys.